Alright, going over homework. The first problem was number 2. Am I saying it right? Each month, the current population survey interviews a random sample of individuals in about 55,000 U.S. households. One of their goals is to estimate the national unemployment rate. In December 2009, 10% of those interviewed were unemployed. I'm reading the right questions, right? I always like to start at sample. So, first of all, if I ask individuals here, which I'm not, what are the individuals that we are selecting? The households, not people, not adults, but it is households in general. So, which households did we sample, or how specific is our sample? We would just say something about the 55,000 U.S. households that were surveyed or that were interviewed. That you need to have U.S. households and the ones that were either sampled or interviewed or surveyed, or individuals in the households. So who could have been interviewed? Individuals in all U.S. households, and that's how specific you would get. Now this was a little bit funny because it says in December 2009, and it talks about that group. So some of you might have said for your sample to be the ones just in December 2009. The way they word that almost kind of contradicts themselves, so I would give it to you whether you said the December 2009 or not. You would have just needed to be consistent whether you included it in the sample in the population or you didn't include it either. The 10% comes just from December 2009. So is that a sample or a statistic? Is that a statistic or a parameter? A statistic that comes from the sample. So we would write statistic. What symbol? P what? P hat equals 10%. Questions on that?
Can you write that as a decimal?
Yes, decimal or percent is absolutely fine. This one I imagine you got messed up on. Is this number 3? Yes, no. Tom's cooking a large turkey breast for a holiday meal. He wants to make sure that the turkey is safe to eat, which requires a minimum internal temperature of 165 degrees Fahrenheit. Tom uses a thermometer to measure the temperature of the turkey meat at 4 randomly chosen points. The minimum reading in the sample is 170 degrees Fahrenheit. So typically we deal with a mean, a standard deviation, or a proportion, but we can deal with any variable we want. So it just so happens that it was the minimum that we dealt with, and that's fine. So what is the sample in this scenario? So the 4 randomly chosen points where the temperature actually was taken. Now, the wording of the population isn't going to be as obvious here. But what in general would it be? So those are the ones we sampled. Population is ones that could have been sampled. So something about saying anywhere you could possibly do that, but with specifically that large turkey, his turkey. It's not all of them. It's any place that you could take the temperature, any point where a temperature could be taken, any internal point of Tom's turkey. So it could have been any of the places in that turkey where it could have taken the internal temperature. So the wording of that one wouldn't have been as obvious as the one before with the all individuals in all U.S. households. Questions on 3 with that part of it. All right, so the 165 degree Fahrenheit, is that a parameter or statistic? Parameter, that needs to be for the whole population. So you would just write parameter equals, or parameter minimum equals 165 degrees Fahrenheit would be fine. because we don't have a symbol for a minimum. And I imagine a lot of you got messed up on that, and as long as you can tell the difference between which is the parameter and which is the statistic, that's where you needed to be at this point. So then the 170 was the what instead? The statistic. So you would write statistic minimum equals 170 degrees Fahrenheit. All right, and I've switched these problems around. I can't remember which ones I ended up doing. Did I do 5 and 6 or 6 and 7? Neither of those. 6 and 8. Okay. Number 6, Florida has played a key role in recent presidential elections. Voter registration records show that 41% of Florida voters are registered as Democrats. To test a random digit dialing service, use it to call 250 randomly chosen residential telephones in Florida. Of the registered voters contacted, 33% are registered Democrats. Who was actually called? Or who was actually sampled? This one's a little bit funny. Well, we know we're definitely only talking about what is our sample. Go write something down on paper.
250 randomly selected residential telephone numbers.
So it's definitely the ones that the 250 ones that were called residential telephones in Florida. Now, the one thing that's a little funny about this, did anybody put anything more specific than that for sample? Because it actually says of the registered voters that were contacted, which I think could have kind of been put in there, but I would think that one's a strange wording. I don't love that part of it. I would have gone with the 250 randomly chosen residential telephone numbers in Florida. And then, so who could, or what could have been selected? And so if you say that your sample is the phone numbers, then your parameter or population should also be phone numbers. So again, wording just needs to be consistent. If you said people with residential telephones in Florida and say consistent from sample population, then that's fine. But if you call it telephone numbers as your sample, call it telephone numbers as your population. You say consistent. But it's definitely all the residential telephones in Florida only that could have been called. Number 8, a random sample of female college students with a mean of 64, or I guess I didn't say. The 41% is parameter or statistic. Parameter, the 33% is statistics. So you should have parameter P equals 0.41, statistic P hat equals 0.33. Number 8, a random sample of female college students has a mean height of 64.5 inches, which is greater than the 63-inch mean height of all adult American women. Not a very specific wording problem here. Our sample is the who?
Female college.
That were sampled or that were selected. Don't just say female college students because it's not all of them. So female college students that were sampled is our sample, or that were interviewed. What is our population? This one should be very easy. The end of this problem says, which is greater than the 63-inch mean height of all American women, all adult American women. So all adult American women is your population. So the 64.5% is of your sample, so that's your statistic. The statistic, what is our symbol for mean for a sample? So statistic, x bar equals 64.5 inches. And then parameter, what's our symbol there? U equals 63 inches.